All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. It's 6 o'clock. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for one of our 4 family Q&A forums we are hosting to assist parents in making an informed decision for their children's return to school options this fall. My name is Elena Trott, and I serve as the Director of Strategic Initiatives for Chesapeake Public Schools, and I'm also a proud member of the Responsive Return to School Steering Committee, who has worked tirelessly to provide innovative solutions to this unprecedented situation in public education. We know our families are divided on whether we should reopen our campuses in just a few short weeks, and we also know everyone's situation is different and parents know their children best. So after reviewing preliminary survey data and diving deeper into dialogue through focus groups with parents, students, and employees, we felt the best decision was to give our families a choice in how their children would learn for the fall. I think it's important to note that not all local school districts are offering choice, but Chesapeake is committed to doing what we can to meet the diverse needs of our families to the best of our ability. And while we recognize that we won't be able to please everyone, we are committed to ensuring high quality instruction for all. We outlined the CDC regulations, the VDOE recommendations, and the process we took to arrive at these 2 options during the school board meeting on July 6th. So if you would like to view that presentation, we encourage you to stream the recording from our website. We have a blend of parents joining us tonight with varying background information on the 2 options. So we're going to start with a brief overview outlining the components of both, and then we will move into answering some of the most frequently asked questions you submitted with your registration. We have received thousands of questions from parents and are going to do our best to answer as many as we can tonight. And I encourage you to visit the FAQ section of our Responsive Return to School website, as we will be continuously updating that page as answers become available. Any Q&As submitted during tonight's forum will be reviewed and included on that page as well. Joining us on our panel tonight, we have Dr. Jacqueline Miller, Chief Student Support Officer and Co-Chair of the Responsive Return to School Task Force. Ms. Nancy Sweat, Director of Instructional Technologies, Services, and Resources, and fellow Co-Chair of the Responsive Return to School Task Force. Dr. Latoya Walker-Harrison, Chief Academic Officer and Steering Committee Member. Dr. Sherry Wilson, Director of Human Resources and Steering Committee Member. Dr. Angie Smith, Director of Communications and Steering Committee Member. Dr. David Benson and Mr. Herbert Bird, Director and Assistant Director of Transportation. Mrs. Trudy Geldricks, Supervisor of Health Services. Mr. Kevin Cole, Supervisor of Student Activities. And Dr. Craig Pinello, Director of Exceptional Learning, who will be hosting a special segment at the end of this forum for parents of exceptional learners. We're also very grateful to have Dr. Nancy Welch, Director of the Chesapeake Health Department, with us. Dr. Welch has been a tremendous asset to helping our team make informed decisions regarding the health and safety of our children and community, and we're thankful for her partnership. I also want to acknowledge all the other Chesapeake Public School employees we have in the session with us this evening, many of whom are wearing the hats of both a professional and a parent. And while we did receive some employee-related questions through the registration form, tonight we're only going to focus on the information our families need to make their choice. More information about employee Q&A forums will be coming soon. Now I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Miller and Dr. Harrison, who will provide a brief presentation on our Return to Learn family choice options. Dr. Miller, if you could unmute for us.
Great, thank you. Good evening, parents, and to those teachers who may be putting on the hat as a parent. Welcome to tonight's session. I am going to review with you our responsive return to school plan. And some of you, if you attended or watched the school board meeting on July 6th, you probably have heard a lot of this, but we know that we have people in the audience who may not have been able to participate. So in preparing for a new school year, under normal circumstances, it's a tough job and it involves a lot of hard work. It's almost like a duck swimming so coolly above the water, but our feet are flailing underneath the water. This year, as we continue to navigate uncertain conditions, that task becomes even more difficult. To begin, I think it's important that you know what our goals are for our return to school plan. There is nothing, and I'll say it again, there is nothing more that we want to do than to safely bring back our students and staff to school. But in order to do that, we need to outline safety measures and mitigation strategies for safe on-campus learning. Finally, we understand that the current conditions do not allow for a one-size-fits-all approach. So our final goal is to provide families with 2 options to meet the educational needs of their children. Which brings us to our Returning to Learning Family Choice Instructional Plan. Yes, family choice. Option 1 is called an on-campus continuum, and we will provide as much on-campus time for your child as permitted by the health guidelines in place at any given time. Or option 2, which is the Chesapeake Online, which is a 100% learning model that will allow families to keep their children learning at home if that is the best option for their circumstances. I would like to spend just a couple of moments sharing some additional information about the options. The on-campus continuum includes 3 possible scenarios. The traditional, where students will attend campus 5 days a week with safety measures in place. There's also the blended model, in which students could attend school 2 days on campus with safety measures and 3 days at home learning. Now, let me share this with you. You see the low COVID rates and high. We know that this model represents a continuum. As we witnessed in the spring, school districts must be prepared to pivot their mode of instruction at a moment's notice, just like we had to do in March. We could shift in a moment's notice if we have an outbreak that occurs that would impact our daily operations, or Virginia's reopening phase could be adjusted at any given time. So we could go from temporary to blended or traditional, and we could go to temporary online in a moment's notice. The goal of the on-campus continuum is to safely serve the maximum number of students on campus in any given phase. That means students may be on campus 5 days a week with health mitigation strategies in place, what we were referring to as the traditional model, or that blended model that we could provide on-campus learning for those 2 days a week with at-home learning the remaining 3. Therefore, limiting the number of students on campus at one time, allowing for more physical distancing. Or it might be necessary to move to that temporary model, and this due to an outbreak or the governor's reopening measures. Let's take a closer look at each of these models in option 1. With the traditional model, we will welcome all students back to campus, resuming normal hours, but it'll look a lot different as we implement additional safety measures. As the CDC suggests, cloth face coverings will be required for employees and middle and high school age students when physical distancing of 6 feet cannot be maintained. And they will be strongly recommended for elementary age students. Classrooms will be arranged and hallway traffic patterns will be adjusted. to allow for physical distancing to the greatest extent possible. Health screenings, including temperature checks, will be administered to all who enter our school and support buildings. We will limit the interaction of student groups as much as possible by having teachers travel from classroom to classroom, limiting the number of classes on the playground at any given time, and discouraging the use of shared student supplies. Our custodial staff will continue to deep clean all frequently touched surfaces, and all staff will assist with sanitizing shared materials such as guided reading books or tools needed for career and technical education. Additional time will be built into our schedule for hand washing, and we will teach and reinforce good hygiene practices daily. Our cafeteria staff will continue to serve breakfast and lunch in our schools, but students will eat in the classrooms until conditions support large group gatherings in communal spaces. Transportation will be provided to and from school, but face coverings will be required for those that use this service. Due to health guidelines, a limited number of students will be permitted to ride the bus at the same time. So we're encouraging families to provide their own transportation or have their students walk or bike if they are able to do so safely. Now I want to emphasize that these safety measures may be relaxed as the governor's phased reopening of Virginia continues. That is our hope, but again, we must be prepared for anything. Which brings me to the blended model. The blended model may be necessary if conditions require the implementation of additional group restrictions. For example, if our buses are not able to transport all students requiring transportation services to school under the physical distancing restrictions recommended by our health department, then we must limit the number of students we bring back at one time. With this model, grade levels are divided into two groups, Group A and Group B, with each group attending school for on-campus learning 2 days per week and working independently at home, either with online activities or paper pencil activities for 3 days. This means that our instructional staff will be working with students face-to-face 4 days per week, and the 5th day will be used for online learning support. Teachers will use this day to support students with their independent learning activities by providing online office hours and conducting small group online interventions through online meetings to support students with special needs or those that require additional assistance. This time will also be used to support our faculty and staff by allowing them time for collaborative planning and professional development to support high quality online instruction, which is so very important right now. It is important to note that every effort will be made to ensure siblings or students living in the same household are grouped together, and some students considered high needs may attend additional days. The final model may be necessary as a short-term solution in the event of a closure or localized outbreak. In that case, students would participate in online instruction daily until conditions allow for a safe return. This would include scheduled teacher-led learning where attendance is expected, and at-home learning, which may be in the form of pre-recorded instruction models or paper pencil activities. All instruction will be provided by the teacher of record in this case, and support will be provided through online office hours, emails, phone calls, and online intervention sessions on an as-needed basis. Also, If this model is used, meals will be provided at distribution sites while students are learning at home. I know what you're wondering. Which of the instructional models that we described under option 1 will be in place on the first day of school? It's a good question, and that's the question parents want to know. That decision depends on many factors, including enrollment and transportation needs, and will be made in consultation with the Chesapeake Health Department. We will announce which model that we will recommend to the board on July 27th, allowing approximately 6 weeks for families to prepare. Let me say this one more time. We will start on the continuum. Where we start on the continuum offered in option 1 will be determined in consultation with the Chesapeake Health Department, and our recommendation to the school board will be announced on July 27th at the next school board meeting. Now I will turn it over to Ms. Sweat, who will explain option 2, Chesapeake Online. Ms.
Thank
Sweat.
you. Thank you so much, and good evening, parents and family members. Chesapeake Online is a 100% online program for students in K-12. This is where students are going to participate in online instruction from home 5 days every week. This program is not self-paced. It's going to include scheduled, teacher-led learning where attendance is expected each day, and at-home learning, which may be in the form of pre-recorded instructional modules and other independent activities. While all core classes will be available for students in grades K through 8, as well as courses required for graduation among our high school students, some elective courses may not be available due to the course content. For example, some of our college and our career and technical ed courses require hands-on laboratory activities plus assessments. Teachers from Chesapeake Public Schools are currently applying and will be selected to teach in our online school in the year 2020-21. They will be using Schoology as our new learning management system. Licensed teachers will be providing instructional support using online office hours, email communication, phone calls, and online intervention sessions as needed by our students. As I mentioned earlier, it's not a self-paced program, and there will be teacher-led sessions where attendance is expected. To give families an idea of the time commitment involved in option 2, please take a look at this per level. At the elementary level, students are going to be expected to attend approximately 1 to 2 hours per day for students in kindergarten through grade 2. 1.5 to 2.5 hours per day for students in grades 3 through 5. Students in our secondary schools are expected to participate in 30 to 45-minute sessions each day for each course in which they are enrolled. These time frames, of course, are approximate, and schedules may vary a bit from course to course and grade level. Additional instructional time will be provided as needed for students who are receiving specialized support, such as those in special education, our English learners, gifted students, and students requiring targeted intervention. Students will also complete independent work outside of those time frames, and this may be in recorded modules or other online activities. All work is going to be graded according to our district grading scale. This option also permits students, it's why you're interested in it, I'm sure, permits students to learn safely at home while allowing them to maintain connection to their home school. This means that families will receive routine communications from their child's school, participate as members of the PTA, and students will be eligible to participate in sports and extracurricular activities with their homeschool once those activities resume. Now, just to be clear, students enrolled in Chesapeake Online will be working with a virtual teacher who may not be a faculty member of your homeschool staff. Your classmates will be students from across the district whose families felt online learning was the best option for their circumstances. Families can expect for the online teacher to be available for online support and parent conferences as needed. With this option, we will continue to provide meal service for students at several meal distribution sites across the district. Now, while this option is intended to be an off-campus solution for our families, on rare occasions, certain standardized tests and assessments will only be available on campus. This does not apply, of course, to the regular teacher-made and routine course level assessments that will be given. Finally, it is important to note that in option 2, you are making a commitment to at least one semester. Students who choose to enroll commit to receiving instruction through Chesapeake Online until February 2nd, 2021 at a minimum. So one semester at a time, and you can of course re-up and continue in the second semester. It is our hope that Chesapeake Online will become a permanent option in the future years for our families. Now I'm going to turn it over to our Chief Academic Officer, Dr. Harrison, who is going to provide a side-by-side comparison of these two options.
Thank you, Ms. Sweat, and good evening, families. So as we take a look at the two options, it's important to note that Chesapeake Public School teachers in option 1 and option 2 will be licensed CPS teachers and will use our division's revised curriculum and pacing guides that incorporate prerequisite course content missed last year due to our school closure. This year, all Chesapeake teachers will be using Schoology, which is a robust and user-friendly learning management system that will allow teachers to organize, manage, and deliver course content to students in one centralized learning hub. Teachers will also use this platform to facilitate in-person Zoom video class sessions with their students, as well as will use this to provide pre-recorded video content, lesson resources, assignments, assessments, etc. All Chesapeake Online courses will be delivered via Schoology, and professional development for teachers is currently underway in our division. However, Schoology will also be used as a resource for instruction and support in the blended and virtual models under option 1. That means we will have, if we have to pivot to blended or virtual learning in option 1, our teachers will have all the tools needed to ensure learning is not disrupted if these shifts in the mode of instruction occur. So as we move on to our course offerings and take a look at our course offerings in each model, you can see that there may be some limitations on the elective options that are available through Chesapeake Online. This will be determined by student enrollment, as well as some of the limits of online instruction for specific software that may not be available on Chromebooks, or for those courses which rely heavily on-campus lab exercises and activities. We have received questions about students taking some classes through Chesapeake Online and others on campus, such as their hands-on electives like music, Chesapeake Career Center, and the like. At this time, option 2 is only 100% online and intended for those who want to remain at home for learning. There may be some exceptions for seniors enrolled in CTE completer programs at CCC. Similarly, due to the hands-on learning required in our unique Academy program courses, Academy students will need to select option 1 to take those courses. Academy students who select option 2 will still be able to remain in their program and can resume Academy courses when they return to on-campus instruction. For students enrolled in dual enrollment courses through TCC, we are in communication with TCC at this time and will update parents on which dual enrollment courses will be available through Chesapeake Online as soon as possible. And one additional reminder, regardless of which option you select, we are asking all parents to submit any course request changes to their school's guidance counselor no later than July 21st, as schedule changes may only be granted based on extenuating circumstances. Now, in regards to scheduling and instructional time, you can see in option 1, our schools will follow regular school hours when students report to campus. As a reminder, Chesapeake Public Schools adopted revised start and stop times last spring, and a copy of those hours are available on our division's website. Students who do not report to campus on their assigned days will be marked absent. As in the past, students who need to apply for extenuating circumstances will be able to do so with medical documentation, and we will also be suspending the exam exemption for attendance this year. In the event of a temporary online situation, we will have a set schedule for all teachers to provide real-time learning sessions, and those expectations will align with Chesapeake Online's estimated times that you saw listed under option 2. In option 2, students will be required to submit weekly assignments to stay on pace, and attendance in virtual class sessions will be required. Virtual class sessions will be scheduled during the regular school day. Therefore, parents should only select this option if you can arrange for your students to be online during the day. We have been asked if virtual class sessions will be recorded for those who are unable to attend during the regularly scheduled times and/or who want to reference them later. And unfortunately, due to privacy concerns, teachers will not be asked to record live instructional sessions. While live class sessions may not be recorded, teachers may opt to record instructional videos and post them to Schoology for student access. Students who miss a session will also have an opportunity to request individual assistance to get makeup work from their teacher and/or to meet with their teacher during the teacher's weekly office hours. For students who need additional instructional support, teachers from both options will be available to provide individual and/or small group intervention sessions and will maintain ongoing communication with parents in both options. Now, in regards to assessment and grading, teachers in both options will use Chesapeake Public Schools grading scale, and we will discontinue the pass incomplete option that was afforded to students last spring. Weighted course credit will still be honored for eligible courses under both options. And whereas students in option 1 may take assessments on campus or online, depending on the instructional delivery model being used at the time, students in option 2 will take most of their assessments online, with the exception of some standardized tests that mandate that students will need to come to campus. Finally, as a reminder, families have until the end of the first semester, February 2nd, 2021, to change any grading choices from the 2019-20 school year. Please contact your school's guidance department if you need to change from letter grade to pass or vice versa. And if your child received an incomplete in a course from last spring, you will need to make arrangements to complete those course requirements by the end of the first semester as well. Now, in regards to technology access for students, we will offer a device loan program for families this year. Families in need of a Chromebook will be able to select that option when they submit their choice in Parent View. Priority for the device loan program will be given to Chesapeake Online students first and secondary students in option 1. We are also in the process of developing a Wi-Fi plan for families who do not have internet access at home, and we will continue to update families as we develop that plan. Finally, we want to assure our families that regardless of what option you choose for your child, he or she will remain enrolled in their assigned school and may participate in extracurricular activities being offered. Families who select option 2 will also continue to receive routine communications from their child's school to stay informed of opportunities. We also encourage all families to monitor the school's website and follow their social media accounts for up-to-date announcements. Now I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Miller for some continued information. Thank you. Dr. Miller.
I forget to unmute, sorry. No matter what option you select, students will be eligible to participate in sports and extracurricular activities with their home school. To give you a brief update on the return to sports and activity plan, Chesapeake Public Schools resumed select sports and activities at the high school level on July 13 with certain restrictions. Unfortunately, games and scrimmages are not permitted, including summer league, and transportation is not provided for these activities. You can review our complete return to sports and activities plan on our website, and we will continue to provide updates as conditions improve. And as you know, the VHSL is coming out on July 27th with a recommendation for their plans as well. And they will vote on 3 possible models, which includes leaving all sports in the current session, or switching the fall and the spring season, or delaying all sports by rescheduling their season dates. And parents, I think you have an opportunity to weigh in on that. So please do so if you are interested in sports, having a voice. Well, let me explain this slide right here. When we are picking up students and dropping off students, drivers and passengers will be required to wear a mask on the bus. Now, students are going to be placed in 1 seat without skipping rows. It's a 6 feet distance from side to side and 2.5 distance from front to back. All of the students will be facing forward. Now notice, on a 71 passenger bus, we can get 24 students on a 71 passenger bus. On a 64 passenger, 22. And on a 24, 12. Special education bus will be determined on a case-by-case basis. We will allow students that are living in the same house to sit together. We will load from the rear to the front, and we'll unload from the front to the rear. We're going to exercise 6 feet physical distancing, or we're going to ask parents to share with their children that there should be 6 foot of distancing while waiting for the school bus to arrive. Distance required to walk to a bus stop in non-transportation zones may be expanded. We will be using electrostatic sprayers to clean the buses with Surface Guard and Holt in between the AM and PM runs. Drivers will use disinfectant spray to wipe down those high contact areas between their routes. Families with partial transportation needs should select yes for transportation in parent view. And in the event that a bus reaches capacity on any given day, our drivers will double back to pick up the remaining students. Families can make their choice beginning July 9th. So we've already started, and you can use Parent View. If families need assistance with their Parent View login, we ask that you contact your child's principal for assistance. When making a choice, parents will encounter several questions. First, to select which option is best for each child. So you'll have to do this for each one of your children, as what is best for one child may be different for another child. You'll have a choice of the on-campus continuum, where the instructional model may vary according to the circumstances, or Chesapeake Online that requires at least a semester-long commitment through February the 2nd. Next, families will be asked to confirm their child's access to technology and the internet. We do not want technology to be a barrier that limits families' choice. So in addition to our one-to-one initiative, we will offer a device loan program for students in need of technology, regardless of the option they choose. We are also in the process of developing a plan to provide access to Wi-Fi for families in need. Then we will ask all families to confirm their transportation needs. As mentioned before, due to the health guidelines, a limited number of students will be permitted to ride the bus at the same time. So we are encouraging families to provide their own transportation or have the students walk or bike if they are able to do so safely. Knowing who will require transportation is crucial information that will help us plan our return. Finally, families will be asked if they need any information about COVID-19 resources. We know this pandemic has taken a toll on many families, and we want to help connect you with the resources in our community that could be of assistance. And we are working hard to support the social and emotional needs of both our students and staff, because we understand how challenging the situation has been and continues to be. Once you have answered these questions, you will be directed to the online verification module, where you can update or confirm your child's emergency contact information. I'll say that once again. Please go on to the online verification model and update all of your contact information. This year, it will surely be needed if we have to call you, so please do so. Our goal is to hear from all families by July 21st. Okay. Now, what if we want to switch from option 1 to option 2? Note that families who do not choose will be defaulted to option 1, but will not be guaranteed transportation or technology. So this is what you need to know about changing your choice. Now until July 21st, you can edit your response in Parent View. So if you did one thing and you want to change it, you can go ahead and do that. After July 21st, requests will be considered based on medical documentation, emergency circumstances, and available seating. By December 15th, you will need to notify your child's school if you wish to change your choice for the second semester. The second semester begins on February 3rd. At this time, we're going to start answering some of your questions, and I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Welch, the Director of Chesapeake Health Department, and Mrs. Trudy Gelderks, who is the Supervisor of Health Services for Chesapeake Public Schools.
Thank you, Dr. Miller. Dr. Welch, the first question. What is the criteria for determining low, medium, and high COVID rates? And what scientific data will you be using? And how often will it be monitored?
And you'll need to turn your mic on.
Dr. Miller and I are in the same non-school here. Yes, this is a very good question. And right now, the most predominant model that is being used looks at it's a 7-day rolling average of cases per 100,000 population. And if there are 5 or less, that's considered a low burden of virus. If there are 6 to 100, that's considered a medium level of virus burden. And if it's over 100, then that's considered a high viral burden. Right now in Chesapeake, we went from 105 per 100,000 to 116. So according to this model, which is being the most frequently promoted model, Chesapeake is already in the high level. In other words, if you looked at that continuum, we're already on the high level.
Next question. Is there a possibility that different schools will be on a different stage of the continuum, or is there a chance that a specific class would be quarantined?
Yes, and this, again, when it's already on the high level as it is now, we're not going to have those options. If we can get it down to the low or medium level, then there certainly are different options relative to the school. Say if someone is positive or if someone is quarantined. And I will say, I think it's appropriate at this time. We are pushing very diligently to get approval from the state to have a full-time epidemiologist who will be devoted completely to the school system, public and private, and to the daycare center so that we can assure ready availability and consistency based on these models.
Thank you. Next question. Dr. Miller, will visitors be screened before entering the building? Will they be required to wear a mask?
Good question. We will be limiting visitor access to the building, and anyone over the age of 10 will be required to wear a mask. Those who must come in the building will be asked health screening questions and have their temperatures checked. Parent conferences and meetings will be held via telephone or video conference whenever possible.
Next question. If a student is out due to illness, what will be the return to class criteria? The criteria will be different based on a COVID-related absence and a non-COVID-related absence. Students that are out as a confirmed or presumptive case will be required to be out for at least 10 days from the time symptoms appear, and at least 3 days, 72 hours have passed since recovery defined as resolution of fever without their use of fever-reducing medication and improvement in respiratory symptoms such as cough and shortness of breath. In addition, a notebook will be required from their healthcare provider. Are there any return to campus restrictions for students and staff who travel to hotspot locations? Great question, and yes, students and staff that travel will be required to discuss their travel itineraries with health services. Health services will be able to utilize timely information to determine what, if any, quarantine period will be required based on location and mode of travel. Does CPS recognize the use of face shields as personal protective in lieu of cloth masks? The CDC does not recommend the use of face shields for normal everyday type activities or as a substitute for cloth face coverings. If face shields are used without a mask, they should wrap around the sides of the wearer's face and extend to below the chin. Next question. Do students with chronic asthma have to wear a mask all day? Both the CDC and the World Health Organization recommend that you wear masks or fabric face coverings in public where 6 feet of physical distancing cannot be guaranteed. So for people with mild or moderate asthma or well-controlled asthma, it's probably not going to be an issue. For people that have severe disease or frequent exacerbations, such as emergency room visits, hospitalizations, require lots of medications, or have frequent symptoms, it might cause more of an issue. If a student is challenged with wearing a mask, try a different type of mask with a different fabric or a different fit. And if still challenged, consult your school health advisor to see if there are any additional options. Dr. Miller, will additional custodial staff be assigned to help with cleaning and sanitizing of the building throughout the day?
Yes, additional custodial staff will be assigned to assist with cleaning during the school day.
Dr. Miller, what is the expectation for cleaning classrooms in between class changes?
The day staff will clean frequently used areas and items, and teachers will be provided with sanitizing wipes to assist with classroom cleaning.
Great. Next question, if students are eating in classrooms, how will meal times be handled to ensure students with allergies are safe? So if students are eating in the classrooms, parents will need to inform the nurse of their child's allergies and medical conditions. Health advisors will be reviewing and communicating food and meal-related allergies to the classroom teacher and nutrition services. Based on that information, they will collaborate to develop a plan for each individual class as needed. Factors such as types of allergies, severity, physical distancing, just to name a few, will be taken into consideration when the plan is developed. When will you take student and staff temperatures? When is the temperature? What is the temperature threshold? And how will you handle fever cases? So students and staff will be monitored on a daily basis. Temperatures will be checked prior to entering the building. The threshold per the CDC is 100.4 or higher if considered a fever, and will require removal from premises. How will we handle the fever cases? Preventing a student from entering the building with a known fever is key. Parents are going to play a primary responsibility in caring for their child's health by screening the children for symptoms each morning, keeping kids home who have even mild symptoms, keeping kids home if they have had recent contact within 14 days with a confirmed case, having your children wash their hands before leaving home for school, ensuring they have their mask, and washing their clothes and masks daily. If a student or staff member is suspected of having a fever, students and staff will don a mask. They will be assessed in the designated isolation room, and the parent and guardian will be notified for pickup within 1 hour of parent contact. How will you handle cases of exposure and mandatory quarantines? Dr. Welch, did you want to touch on that?
We will use the CDC guidelines on exposure and quarantine. Now, it's probably, you've already mentioned isolation. Isolation is different from quarantine. Isolation is if you actually have a positive case, you test it positive. Quarantine is if you have been exposed, and that is 14 days from the last time of exposure that you need to be in quarantine at home. That would not be in the school setting, and that would be trying to maintain as limited exposure as possible. If there is a household exposure, it would actually be, if your exposure was at school, we'd want to also encourage and that you actually use a mask at home.
In addition to that, contact tracing is a
Let me say a bit about that.
okay.
The contact tracing is a vital part of any positive case, and the individual who needs to be quarantined would most likely be determined by way of the contact tracing. Contact tracing is looking at those who are positive, asking about exposures, and exploring anyone who might have been exposed so that they can put in quarantine. The purpose of the quarantine is doing the incubation period to see if the individual is going to develop the disease or not. And if they develop the disease, we want to keep them away from a large part of the community so that they do not spread it.
And CPS is going to work collaboratively with the Chesapeake Health Department on all positive cases to assess possible exposures. The oversight of the epidemiologist will determine the necessary actions to ensure the safety and well-being of our students and our staff as well. And will CPS institute mandatory COVID testing for students and/or staff? So revisions were made to the Virginia Department of Health stance on testing, and the schools will not be conducting broad range testing, but will refer individuals with symptoms with COVID-19 to a healthcare provider or testing site. In collaboration with the Chesapeake Health Department, should widespread testing be required, it will be under the direction of the Chesapeake Health Department. How many students will be in a classroom, and what is the average physical distancing between desks? Dr. Miller?
The average number of students that can be, or desks that can be in a classroom, the average would be 15 if we're trying to do 6 feet of distancing. However, students wearing masks, we can go to 3 feet of distancing if students wear those masks. So we are looking at our room configurations. Administration are looking at their room configurations in consultation with Dr. Welch. She talked about if all of the seats are facing forward and students are 6 feet apart, then we should be good because of the droplets. And so we are looking to have that. Hopefully we can have 6 feet of distancing and get as many students in a classroom at one time. Again, that's only the average.
I'm going to answer some questions related to the on-campus continuum. So one of the first questions we received is, if it becomes necessary to shift from one instructional model to another on the continuum, how much notice will be given to families? And unfortunately, we are unable to anticipate this. Of course, we will provide as much notice as quickly as possible and encourage families to also stay informed on trend data from the health department and to monitor the governor's updates. If we have to go temporarily online, will the online instruction come from my child's regular teachers? How will it be different from what we experienced this past spring? And yes, your child's regular teachers will provide instruction via online learning. And we have a plan to increase expectations for curriculum, direct instruction, and grading if we need to shift to online learning. Additionally, we have a new learning management system, Schoology, that will help streamline communication. And finally, teachers are currently participating in professional development on Schoology, and professional development will also be ongoing throughout the school year for our teachers. Will there be a lag in instruction if we have to transition to temporarily online learning? We certainly learned a lot last spring when we had to suddenly transition to online learning. However, with our new learning management system, revised curriculum and pacing, professional development, and additional resources, we are more ready than ever with this proactive approach. Our teachers are far better prepared to provide quality instruction across the learning continuum. And if we have to implement the blended model, how will that work for the 3 schools who still have half-day kindergarten? And we know this is a really important question for many of our families. We are going to have to take a look at family choice numbers for those schools to determine what the blended model will look like, but the traditional days will still be half days for students in the half-day kindergarten programs. If we have to go temporarily online, will there be a set schedule each week for real-time class sessions? And yes, all teachers will be expected to have real-time class sessions scheduled each week. These will coincide with the expectations that are already established for our Chesapeake online teachers. If we move to blended learning, will parents have the option to choose 2 days of the week, the 2 days each week that they prefer their child to attend school, and will the days remain consistent each week? Parents will not be able to choose, however, the days will be consistent. Group A will attend on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and Group B will attend on Wednesdays and Fridays. If we move to blended learning, will students in the same family be assigned to the same on-campus days? And we will certainly make every attempt to schedule students living in the same household on the same days. However, there may be some instances where this cannot be guaranteed. Are middle and high school students expected to stay in the same room all day? And how will you maintain physical distancing during class changes? And no, our middle and high school students will definitely need to change classes. We will provide additional structure for hallway traffic, and they will be required to wear face coverings during arrival, class changes, and during dismissal. And what will PE and/or recess look like? Will secondary students dress out for PE? PE and recess will occur outdoors as much as weather permits, and physical activities will be in small groups. Our secondary students will not have access to locker rooms and should dress accordingly when they arrive to school. Now I'm going to turn it back over to Ms. Sweat for some additional questions.
Sorry, had a little bit of a malfunction there, getting my mute off. Thank you. I have a couple of questions as well, and here you see how and when will you determine which courses are being offered through Chesapeake Online? Will my child have to change his course request? So the answer being, as previously stated, all core courses in grades K through 8 will be offered. Additionally, all high school courses required for graduation will be offered. Elective courses will be determined first by student enrollment. Parents will be notified if a specific course is not to be offered on Chesapeake Online so that they can have an alternate course selection. School counselors can arrange student schedules so that they have more hands-on electives scheduled in the second semester or even in a subsequent year to allow more time for them to return to on-campus instruction. Next question. If a student transitions from Chesapeake Online to on-campus learning for the second semester, what can my student expect? Students will return to their assigned schools and be placed in classes for the courses they are currently taking. Teachers will receive the transfer grades to enter into their grade books, and since teachers in both options are using the same curriculum and pacing guides, students will be able to transition without losing any content. High school students enrolled in semester courses will begin new courses in the second semester. If students select online for the first semester, Will they be able to take year-long A/B alternating classes? High school students in Chesapeake Online will be able to take A/B classes and complete their courses for credit. Will my child be able to take his or her music and art classes online? Yes. Students will be able to take art, music, health and PE classes regardless of what instructional delivery model they select. All of this is included in Chesapeake Online as well as in the on-campus continuum. A few more questions for Chesapeake Online. Will my child be in classes with students from other schools? Yes. Next question. Will gifted and talented elementary and middle school students still be clustered to receive the GATE curriculum? Similar to our traditional school setting, we cannot guarantee all gifted learners will be in the same online class. However, online teachers will be using gifted strategies to provide extension and enrichment learning experiences for their identified students. This may include additional small group sessions and independent learning activities. Will students receive hard copies of textbooks, math manipulatives, materials for science experiments, and other learning resources? Chesapeake Online will rely on online resources and learning experiences. Hard copies of textbooks are available upon request from the student's assigned school. How will the teachers be selected for Chesapeake Online? Teacher applications, which include a performance task, principal recommendations, and previous professional evaluations, will be used to select our Chesapeake Online teachers. All teachers who are selected for Chesapeake Online will receive specialized training in online instruction and teaching strategies for the virtual world. Dr. Miller, back to you.
Great, I didn't even cut my mic off. The first question, how early can parents drop off their children to school? For those parents opting to utilize before school care, the drop-off time will be no earlier than 6:30 a.m. For parents just wanting to drop their child off to school, they may need to, schools may need to stagger their arrival times. Therefore, we are unable to give specific drop-off times at this time. Specific drop-off times will be developed with the schools. So be on the lookout for that. Will parents have to go inside the school building to pick up their children? No, schools will be working on their parent pickup systems to be outside, so we limit the number of visitors inside the building. Next question, will schools have more efficient system for parent drop-off and pickup traffic? We recognize that there will be an increase in traffic as more families drop off and pick up their children. We are consulting with the Chesapeake Police Department and our own safety and security team to help principals with troubleshooting traffic patterns. What are the consequences for students who remove or refuses to wear a mask? Student safety is our utmost concern. Students that disregard the health and safety mitigation strategies in place will be subject to conference calls with parents or further disciplinary action. The Student Code of Conduct outlines consequences associated with unsafe behaviors. Guidelines for disciplinary action specific to the health and safety concerns of COVID-19 are being developed and will be in place prior to the start of the school in the fall. And what will happen if my child forgets to take his or her mask to school? For those students who forget their mask, one will be provided.
How do new families select their option? What if we are still waiting on documentation to come in to complete our child's enrollment? New families may contact their child's school for assistance with selecting their desired option in Parent View. Will there be an orientation for rising kindergartners, sixth graders, and freshmen? And yes, there will be orientations held. However, due to the high number of parents and students in attendance at these events and health conditions at the time, these orientations may be held virtually rather than in person. Can seniors drop the elective classes they don't need and take all their required classes for graduation in the fall so they do not have to attend second semester? If a student desires to graduate early, they must meet the criteria outlined in the student handbook for early graduation. How do you plan to address the social and emotional needs of students? And this is something that is very important to us and is a top priority. And we have developed a committee that is working to implement social emotional learning across the curriculum. And how do you plan to address learning gaps from the spring? Our curriculum, and please know that our curriculum teams have been diligently working to embed skills and content that were missed during our time of school closure, and these skills will be embedded in our subsequent courses. Students will also be assessed to determine their individual needs so that teachers can differentiate instruction accordingly. And now I'm going to turn it back over to Ms. Trott, who has some additional information to share with you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Harrison. What we'd like to do is show you a quick demo of the resources that are available on our website in case you haven't had a chance to check that out lately. So we'll share our screen here. On our CPS homepage, first of all, I'd like to point out that our YouTube channel is right here at the very top. And so all of the recordings, including tonight's forum and the one that we did on Monday, as well as the ones coming up next week, will be posted there for you to reference. And on our homepage here, you'll see you can learn more about our responsive return reopening plan. If you click on that, here you have several options available to you. This is an overview which includes our survey data from our preliminary survey we conducted in June. It also has our goals, the school board presentation that we referenced earlier, as well as a link to Parent View and detailed instructions. These are step-by-step instructions that are available to parents. Also today, we posted an instructional demo video for how to put your answers in Parent View. That's available on our Chesapeake Public Schools Facebook page. So you may want to watch that very quick tutorial there, and then today's sessions are here. But back up at the top, we have more information about option 1 here, option 2 here. We have a frequently asked questions tab, and when you click on that, it will bring up some subheadings here. If you click on the plus, you will be able to access some of the frequently asked questions, and we are continuously updating that as decisions are made. So if you want to put a tickler in your calendar to check on that weekly, and then you can keep up to date on the latest information. And then finally here, our responsive return framework. This is a big PDF document here that if you click on it, will bring up a draft version of our full plan in detail. And so you can check out some of the specifics that are available. And let's see. And then finally, here's a link here for you to make your choice as well. So hopefully you will check out that website. And this brings us to the end of the general education portion of the forum tonight. And if you would like additional information on our exceptional learners, specifically our students that receive special education services, please stay on. Dr. Pinella is going to be with us shortly. As a reminder, we want you to log into Parent View to complete that online form no later than Tuesday, July 21st. And for those of you, if we weren't able to answer your questions that you submitted, again, in the chat box tonight, we are recording all of those, and we will work diligently to post those answers for you on the FAQ FAQ. This is truly school redesign on a dime. So we thank you in advance for your support and being with us tonight. So if you do not have a need to hear the information regarding our special education services, you're certainly free to leave the webinar at this time. And for those who wish to stay on, I'd like to welcome Dr. Craig Pinello, who will address your questions regarding exceptional learners.
Thank you, Ms. Trott, and good evening, everyone. Welcome, and thank you to everyone who decided to stick with us just a little longer to hear some additional information regarding our exceptional learners. I know how stressful these times are for everyone, and I certainly recognize that there's added stress for our families who have students with disabilities. Tonight, I hope to provide you with a bit more clarity on how our students with disabilities will be affected as we plan to reopen schools. First, let me acknowledge that we have all just heard a great deal of information regarding the reopening plans for all students. I often need to remind myself, so I want to be sure to remind you that everything we have heard thus far is also applicable to our students with disabilities. That said, I do want to be responsive to several key concerns that I have found repeatedly mentioned by our community. I have personally browsed through the hundreds, maybe thousands of questions that were submitted as part of the Q&A form process. And as I examined the questions regarding students with disabilities, there were several clear themes that emerged. Specifically, what will the different options offered by Chesapeake Public Schools look like for students with disabilities? Next, how will special education evaluations be completed? And how will related services such as speech therapy, occupational therapy, or physical therapy be provided? And finally, there were many questions that were more specific to the unique needs of individual children. With respect to what special education services will look like in each of the options, I want to say that it is the school district's intent to allow students and families to participate in either of the options available, the on-campus continuum or the Chesapeake online option. For the majority of our students, participating in either option should not present significant issues. However, it very well may require consideration of your child's IEP or Section 504 team to determine if there are any necessary special education or related services that could be impacted by the option that you select. If the selected option is the on-campus continuum and an in-person traditional model is in effect, then I would expect there to be minimal concerns with the implementation of students' special educational programming. Specifically, student learning in the traditional model will look similar to pre-COVID instruction. However, it will be subject to any safety and health precautions, again, just like all students. The blended model for students with disabilities will allow us to address key services that require face-to-face interaction while also providing online instruction for areas of a student's IEP or Section 504 plan that can be appropriately addressed in that fashion. The temporary online option and the Chesapeake online option could be appropriate for many students, but we must acknowledge that there are some students who will have goals, accommodations, or services that cannot be implemented in a virtual setting. For example, you can imagine that some social, emotional, or behavioral goals may be more difficult or impossible to implement in a home setting. Additionally, some related services such as physical therapy could require that a teacher and a student be face-to-face in order for the student's needs to be addressed. In such cases, it will be necessary for IEP or Section 504 teams to meet and determine the extent to which a student's plan can be appropriately implemented in the different options. If the team determines that the plan or certain aspects of the plan cannot be implemented virtually, then there could be instances where arrangements must be made for students to receive at least some face-to-face services regardless of the selected option or current phase of the on-campus continuum. In each option, students with disabilities will have access to appropriate support from special education teachers. And additionally, inclusive opportunities will be important, and special education and general education teachers will be working collaboratively to address students' needs. Again, in all cases, it is ultimately the role of each student's IEP or Section 504 team to determine the scope of special education related services and address considerations of the least restrictive environment. In some situations, special education and related services may be suspended during a temporary closure and begin again once face-to-face instruction can resume. If this occurs, teams may need to convene to discuss the impact of the closure on the provision of special education and related services to eligible students and consider what, if any, individual adjustments to a student's plan might be required. As we continue to move toward the opening of schools, Chesapeake Public Schools staff will be further developing processes and procedures that can assist us in navigating these difficult decisions. Another area of concern has been special education evaluations. Many of our evaluations have been able to be completed during the school closure. However, there are some critical evaluations, such as student psychologicals, that require face-to-face interaction and have had to pause due to the restrictions associated with the COVID-19 pandemic. The Department of Exceptional Learning has been working feverishly to develop a plan that allows in-person evaluations to occur in a safe and healthy manner. Assuming that we do not encounter increased restrictions, we do expect to be able to begin scheduling evaluations in all areas very soon. Additionally, our department is working to increase our ability to perform virtual evaluations. As stated earlier, please keep in mind that there may be situations where certain evaluations or aspects of evaluations cannot occur without in-person options. I do ask that you please recognize we have a lot of ground to make up. So I'm asking for your patience and understanding as we work to effectively schedule the many evaluations that must be completed. The next theme that I'd like to respond to involves the provision of related services. The Department of Exceptional Learning is working to expand its ability to provide related services through virtual means. We're currently exploring how to overcome certain challenges associated with the implementation of teletherapy, including issues of funding a virtual platform, resources, staffing, and FERPA and HIPAA requirements. Although we fully expect to be able to provide expanded virtual services, there will remain aspects of related services that cannot be effectively completed without face-to-face interactions. There will likely be times when face-to-face arrangements must be made for a student who has opted for Chesapeake Online, or when we are in the virtual phase of the on-campus continuum. In all cases, CPS will follow strict safety and health guidelines with respect to any face-to-face interactions. And lastly, I want to suggest that if you do have specific questions related to the unique circumstances of your child, that you reach out directly to the school-based staff at your child's home school. Responding to questions related to exceptional learners can be very individualized, as each of you know, and requires the involvement of staff members who have knowledge of your child. The administrative team at your child's school should be able to connect you with the appropriate person or persons to assist you. In closing, I again want to thank you for your unwavering support of our students with disabilities. The challenges are bound to keep coming at us as we move forward, but I am sure that we will overcome. I want to thank you, and I hope that you have a very nice evening.
Thank you so much, Dr. Piniello. And this concludes our forum tonight. Again, a video recording of this will be available on our Chesapeake YouTube channel. Thank you so much. Have a good evening.